All right, got to test the mic. 1, 2, 3, 4. That sounds very good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Whoever joined here tonight for our weekly HASHWAR finale. Final seconds on our counting down before we start with our 16 glyph contestants who will fight it out against each other in a knockout-style tournament. For those of you who are joining here for the first time, this is an optimization computational sports problem that we posed. We're trying to find Conway's Game of Life patterns that we use as game tokens. You can see that here on the screen as a visualization. And we built an entire esports league out of it with a week-long series of tournaments to determine the weekly winner. So we're counting now down the final 5 seconds before we commence in earnest here. Okay, let's begin. Welcome to HASHWAR Weekly Series Finale. Let me give you a quick overview of what we're looking at. Okay, exactly this. Let's start here. We are looking at the series 31, weight class 500. The entire week consisted of, so far, 5 tournaments already. Monday through Thursday, we had the group phase, where we had 8 individual Game of Life patterns that were hashed and mined by our users and players. And they fought in round-robin style tournaments for the highest score to determine who advances to the weekly finale tonight. So this is Monday through Thursday, and as you can see, there's a lot of really interesting contestants out there already. Friday was the so-called redemption day, because only the top 3, marked in green here, of the group phase will advance automatically to the championship. The runt of the litter, the last placed glyph, will always be immediately excluded, but the 4 in the middle, indicated in yellow, they have to fight again on Redemption Day, Friday, in knockout-style tournaments to determine the winner of each of these knockout-style tournaments, who will also advance to the weekly championship. So that gives you 32 glyphs that enter the tournament at the start of the week, and only 16 of those qualify for the weekly championship. So without further ado, let's have a look at who has qualified here. Dormant Warmind is the one pattern that was hashed by Bobino. Yes, let's go Bobino. He's very excited in the chat. It's a completely new pattern that was hashed within the last 2 weeks, I think, with an exceptionally high average cell density count. So this is why it has scored an exceedingly high score, the highest we've seen in this tournament so far. Even higher than, and this is my pattern, my champion, it's the highest ranked glyph we have so far, 51,000 points. So let's go back here to the Hall of Fame to give you quickly a heads up of what's ahead here. Dormant Warmind, currently ranked 5th. It only ever participated in one series, that was last week, and is already on place number 5 in the perennial Hall of Fame against the Cardinal. We're probably going to see these 2 patterns fight it out against each other. If Dormant Warmind wins, that would make Bobino's 3rd gold medal, thoroughly beating me. But let's see if that is going to come to pass. Without further ado, I'm going to start the weekly finale now. Here are 16 glyph contestants, so individual Game of Life patterns that were hashed and mined according to specific characteristics that make them competitive, and we will engage that now. So this is a knockout-style tournament. Each match we're going to see between 2 individual patterns lasts for 4 rounds. That's the top left corner you can see here. We are using a seeded randomness generator to determine the glyph trajectory. This is a 0-player game. We have no way to influence the outcome. It's basically an auto-battler. All the effort that the players put into it, you can see the owner here, Partagaz or Lorenzo, all the effort that the players can actually put into the game comes into hashing and mining these patterns. For example, the Pando Heart, Ruby on Rails. This is weight class 500 we're playing, which means if you're familiar with Conway's Game of Life, you know that this is a cellular automata that has a very fickle behavior. It either explodes into very complex patterns or it fizzles out very, very quickly. The trick is, and this is what makes the computational challenge of this series, you have to find patterns on the 16 by 16 torus that live for exactly 500 to 599 unique generations. That's the trick behind it. That's the optimization problem. And these patterns you're seeing here, the Pando Heart, for example, which is a silver medalist, it's there on the top 10 Hall of Fame for glyphs. These patterns are not so easily found. You have to dedicate computational resources to it and optimize them according to this. So this is what we're going to see here. Pandohard is now leading with an edge of about 500 points after 3 rounds already. That's a promising start. And for those of you who have joined here anew, what is actually going on here on the screen? This is a 3D application that we wrote. It's completely proprietary code. It's up there on GitHub if you want to inspect it, how we did this. I basically asked myself, how could you make Conway's Game of Life from a 0-player game to an actual game that you could play? How could you pit Conway's Game of Life patterns against each other? And I came up with the so-called adversarial Conway algorithm. It's a class of algorithms, actually. The basic idea behind that is we take these patterns and their current state and project it onto the torus, and this charges the cells of the common space on the torus. And what these bright flashes you're seeing, this is basically the patterns flipping a cell that was previously held by its opponent to its own side. So if the Pandohard has some of these cells charged up in green, and Ruby on Rails comes along in pink, and it manages to recharge these cells to its own side, it flips them to its own side. That means these are the bright flashes that we're seeing. This is in essence how we did it. So this is now the second of 8 matches in the first tier of this knockout style tournament. It's featuring Dormant Warmind already. Exceedingly performant pattern we've seen so far. So let's see if this really advances to the championship finale, which we fully expect to do. Aporia Vector is a new pattern. I think it was hashed last week. It's basically untested. It's the first time it's actually contributing to one of the weekly series, but it managed to qualify for the finale. So out of this 32 contestant glyphs that we had in the beginning of the week, only 16 advanced to the final match, which we're seeing here, the final tourney, which we're seeing here. All right, so let's see, what does that mean? After 1 round, we have 2,600 points for Dormant Warmind. It's underselling itself a bit, I have to say. Dormant Warmind has consistently ranked almost 3,000 points per round, so this is not exactly its top performance we're seeing so far. All right, yeah, that's more like it. 2,800 point in the last round. That is some serious scoreage here. Could go on to win 10,000 points easily after 4 rounds. And pains to say, maybe the Aporia Vector is an untested, a new pattern, apparently without a chance. Okay, as I said, this is a 3D application. It's fully navigable. You can click in there and just zoom around and all that. If you want to test it, for those of you who have joined us here, if you want to test it yourself, I'm going to post a link in the chat here. So you can click on that and play around with the engine and set up your own tournaments, which will be unranked tournaments. These will be test tournaments. So only I can instigate ranked matches that you're seeing right here. All right, final round now for Dormant Warmind against Aporia Vector. I think there is no way Aporia Vector, even if Dormant Warmind suffered from a containment failure right now, couldn't score anymore. There's no way Aporia Vector can catch up with that kind of lead. All right, here we go. Final seconds for this match. Doesn't look like Dormant Warmind is going to beat the 10,000 points, though. No, it's just a little bit short of 10,000. Well, good. Still a spectacular performance. We'll have to watch out for that. I'm so excited to see whether Dormant Warmind is going to challenge the reigning #1 glyph in our perennial Hall of Fame. That would be the Cardinal. It's on the right-hand side, the second from the top on the right-hand side of the bracket. All right, next up, Archimedes 210. I think it's bronze medal winner we had before, and Mint Decay. Mint Decay is not a really distinguished pattern so far, I think. Let me look that up. Okay, containment failure for Archimedes 210, but relatively late into the round, so that didn't really make any difference. All right, so far so good. 10,000 points is so much, yeah. I completely agree, Bobnu in the chat. Completely agree, 10,000 points for 4 rounds. That is exceedingly high. It's an average of 2,500 points scored. Although I think Dormant Warmind could actually do better when it's really lucky. It could even push that 10,000. That's a very strong pattern to look out for. Very close, those two patterns. I may have been too harsh in my judgment on Mint DK because Mint DK is currently leading and Archimedes 210 is bronze medalist. So it's already on the, yes, it's number 9 on the all-time rank. Yep, bronze medalist for, look, yeah, well, Series 29, 2 weeks ago, Archimedes 210 made it to the final 4 glyphs. This is such a tight result. Look at that. They're barely 150 points apart from one another. Really interesting to see. So maybe Mint DK is much better than I'm giving it credit for. Happy accident. Was not mine to be a strong pattern? No, absolutely not. But it takes a while if you pick up this game. This is not something that you play casually or like an arcade game. You just switch on and play for 2 hours. It's more like something that you run in the background while you work, and then you let your miners look for patterns and you specify some constraints and try to optimize it. That's basically the idea behind that. And yeah, we have fun with it because we made it into an entire series that plays out over a week and from week to week. Right, this is now the 4th of the first tier of matches we're going to see. Euler 952 versus Fibonacci 296, both owned by Prometheus. Prometheus is my alt account, so this I use for basically hold patterns in limbo that are not yet part of the official. Well, they're part of the official series right now, but I use Prometheus as a holding account. These are some of the patterns that I hash mine specifically for new joiners, because every new joiner receives one of these patterns so they can start right away. If you join this HASHWAR universe and log in and create an account and all that, it takes a while to find patterns that are actually suitable and eligible for competing here. So this is one of the ways to ease the transition, to make the threshold a bit less for people who join new. I have a lot of these pre-hashed patterns like this, Euler 952 and Fibonacci 296, and I assign it as a gift, as a sign-up gift, so to speak, so that players can immediately jump into the experience. And this is why you're seeing matches like that play out. Okay. Okay, 2,100 points versus 2,000, close to 2,900 after 2 rounds. That's decent, but nothing exceptional. As we've seen before, Dormant Warmind has scored 2,500 points, in excess of 2,500 points in each round. So that's much stronger pattern. Oh, they are really fighting out here now. Look at this glare. All right, and that is the conclusion of round 3. Okay, all 3 rounds so far have been won decisively by Fibonacci. Euler didn't stand a chance. Yeah, it looks like this is going to be a blast for Fibonacci. It's clearly going to win. The next match is going to be interesting because that will feature the Cardinal, the current #1 in the Hall of Fame of all the glyphs. 2 gold medals, 1 silver medal to its name. That'll be interesting. Fully expect, well, of course I have to say this because it's my pattern. I try to be a bit neutral here, but then again, it is my pattern and I fully expect it to advance here. Pink noise is not going to stand in its way. No, I don't think so. Sorry, Bobinu. Sorry for that. But then again, if pink noise won now, that would be a shame for you too, because then 2 of your patterns would probably meet up in the finale. And look at that. The cardinal is barely scraping an advantage now. Okay, now overtaking pink noise. Still neck and neck. Oh my. Maybe my pattern is in more trouble than I anticipated it. Okay, 1900 points. That's decent. Nah, I don't think so. Pink noise is not going to beat the cardinal. It's a decent pattern. There's nothing wrong with it, but the cardinal is an exceedingly strong pattern, and it's one of the earliest that we have actually in the game. Was, I think, mined in February this year. Yeah, that's more like it. When you look at the life cell profile here, you can see that the cardinal gets stronger over the latter half of its life. So this is also what we're seeing. No, it was not mined with density in mind, Bobino. Absolutely not. It just happened to be among the very first batch of glyphs and patterns that are mined back in January, when I had this initial idea for the series to set it up. And I just hash mined whatever looked good. So that's basically it. I didn't have a very clear understanding what makes a pattern competitive or not. This is something that we've only found out, I think, over the past 4 weeks, that it's actually the density. It's not so much the generational count. You can see there is a considerable difference in generational count. Pink noise lives for 557 unique steps. The cardinal has a longer lifespan, 585. There is a bias in there. The longer a pattern lives, the more likely it is to be successful, because it has more time to roam around the torus and charge cells, but it's in no way decisive. It's a very weak statistical correlation that we found in our data. So this gave rise to us asking ourselves, what is it that makes a pattern competitive? And it turns out it's probably much more like the average density, how many cells are alive at any given time. Look at that. Pink noise is now leading and winning the last round. That didn't decide the match, but still, that's a decent victory. Anyway, the cardinal advanced. It's now one in the quarterfinals already. Okay, next up we have DX771140 versus Euler455. DX is, I believe, it's one of the patterns R2D2 discovered during the daily Conway Glyph challenge and registered it separately so that it could compete here in the weekly series. This is actually one of the things I've been thinking about. The daily Conway Glyph challenge, that was the very first mini game we introduced for Conway Game of Life on our site, livehashes.net. And I think we should introduce something like a daily match of the best daily glyphs that are being mined, because that is also very interesting to see. There's a leaderboard that resets at midnight when we fetch a new NIST randomness beacon pulse to use as a randomness and cryptographic salt, which we will then hash into our origin hashes. Okay, there's a video out there where I explain the general idea. It's basically a computational puzzle that resets at midnight, and the idea is to find Conway's Game of Life patterns on the 16 by 16 torus that live for the longest possible time that you can find. Should filter out externally mined patterns in that competition. I completely agree, right? The daily Conway Glyph challenge has that problem that only the lowest suites are actually used by people who use the website. The higher ranked suites that are much more difficult to attain, these are usually mined by people who have their own miners that don't run in the browser. They run on GPUs and then they hit our endpoints and submit them. Yes, that is absolutely true. If we do something like that, we will have to account for the fact that people use their own miners. They're basically bypassing the engine that we offer people, and this heavily skews this entire challenge towards people who are programmers and who are very savvy in optimizing code and who have computationally very efficient rigs at home, that sort of stuff. We don't want that to unduly bias the entire game. We don't want pay to win, basically. If I have a bigger rig, if I have a Bitcoin miner or something like that, I might have a hardware advantage, and we don't want this to influence the outcome of the game. All right, yeah, here we go. Very close up, hardly more than 500 points apart, so that's good. That makes for a decent suspenseful game or match. Yeah, and that's it. It results in DX77 is also in the quarterfinals. Right. Next up, oh my goodness, Nostromo Eigenmother, Kopfsache, yeah, that's a good German word, versus Lemon. Lemon is one of these surprise underdog patterns, I have to say. So for those of you who've joined recently, we let Conway's Game of Life patterns battle each other according to the adversarial Conway algorithm. This is what you're seeing here in the 3D engine. They try to charge the cells of the storers to their respective side. And the battle light that you're seeing here, these flashes, the bright flashes, that is whenever one of these patterns succeeds in stealing a cell count from its opponent. And you tally up all the cells that were charged to a particular side, which gets you a round score. So, and this way you can make Conway's Game of Life patterns fight each other. It's a zero-player game in as much it's an auto-battler in as much that we cannot influence the outcome of the battle. Where the player comes in is by actually hash mining these patterns. So Lemon is a pattern, Kopfsache is a pattern. These were specific glyphs found on the 16x16 torus that have properties which makes them eligible for our weekly series tournament. We actually built an esports series out of this. So a weekly series starts with the group phase, where 8 glyphs fight each other in round-robin style tournaments to determine the group winners, and the group winners automatically advance to the weekly finale, which we're seeing now, which we're live casting now. So out of 32 glyphs that start at the beginning of each week, only 16 make it to the grand finale, as we're seeing here, and they then fight a knockout-style bracket tournament, which we can see here. Okay, I should probably zoom out here a bit. This is a 3D application, so I can freely roam around in there. Right, so last round, Kopfsache versus Lemon. Lemon is not doing too well. I said it was one of these surprising underdog patterns. It shows up regularly in our weekly finale, so that gives it some credit. Kopfsache, I believe, is one of the newer patterns, was found last week and immediately pulled in by the random draw for the group phase. So that's a decent pattern. As you can see from the live cell profile, I think this is one of the patterns that was hashed with the average cell density in mind. So you can clearly see that this is a very steady profile we're seeing there. Okay, yeah, clear and decisive victory for Kopfsache. Okay, next up we have Muon Catalyst, one of these older patterns. We have Muon Catalyst regularly shows up in the finale. It's one of those steady patterns, but it never actually won a medal, as far as I know. Versus Positively Nabokovian. Ooh. I'd love to hear the story behind that. It's a very bright orange pattern. I don't know. I think it was hashed last week. I haven't seen that before. Relatively high. There's actually a very high generation count for the Nabokovian, 596, which is as high as it gets. Weight class 500 stops at 599. So this is already a very long-lived pattern. But then again, that doesn't necessarily determine that this pattern will always win, and it barely scraped by, less than 100 points difference in the first round against Muon Catalyst. I agree, Bobinu, in the chat. I can't wait for the 600 weight class. Absolutely. Oh yeah, there's some wacky names in there. This is one of the traditions that quickly sprang up when we, because these patterns are individual, you have to find them after a prolonged period of time, and you finally find a pattern that is eligible, that fulfills all the characteristics, all the requirements that we have for these glyphs, and then you give it a name. So that's kind of cool, and we quickly discovered that there is this many punny and witty and tongue-in-cheek kind of humor. This is probably where Positively Nabokovian comes from. That's a mouthful. Or Muon Catalyst. I mean, that's a physics reference right there. It sounds kind of cool. And the weight class 600, which we'll start playing on Sunday 23rd of August, we'll open up weight class 600. We're going to see a brand new batch of patterns, and some of them I've already seen there. They're really, really nice, fun sounding names. So something we can look forward to. Last round for this match. Positively Nabokovian up by about 600 points. That's decent. Neon Catalyst is barely scraping by now, but still overtaken on the last minutes, on the last seconds by Nabokovian. No chance. 7,500 points. That is actually a good score. It's a good, I'd say, not even mid-range. I'd say that is already a really good score. Okay, next up. This is the first quarterfinal. The Pandohard silver medalist versus Dormant Warmind. Also silver medalist. Dormant Warmind, the most prospective pattern in this round. It scored the highest group phase score, over 70,000 points. So if one pattern is going to make it to the finale, it's probably Dormant Warmind. It's really interesting and nasty fight here, I have to say. The Pandohard is being suppressed, can't really play to his strengths. Nope. Oh my goodness, 800 points for the Pandohard. A relatively strong pattern. That is not good. Dormant Warmind really gave it a fight. Let's see how this progresses here. And Dormant Warmind is again on the offensive, tearing into the Pandohard. Pandohard barely coming out from under. Wow, what a match. The Pandohard is not even going on the counter-offensive here. It's completely avoiding the Pandohard. All right, recovered a bit. Yeah, 1,500 points, barely holding up. Yeah, 2 of 4 rounds, and Dormant Warmind is already up by more than 2,000 points. That's an impressive performance. All right, now it's the Pandohard. It's really giving Dormant Warmind a fight here. Yeah, got some of that honor back. Right. Dormant Warmind really has to defend itself here. But to no avail. Third round won by Dormant Warmind. Oh my, this is a really hard fight. They're giving it their all. Okay, the Pandohard not even scraping by 1,000. Yeah, barely scraping by 1,000 points now. Yep, and that's it. 9,500, close to 9,500 points for Dormant Warmind. Absolutely killer pattern. That pattern is going far. All right, the second of 4 quarterfinals. Mint DK versus Fibonacci 296. Have you thought about adding sound effects to the battle? Undivided on this one. It would probably enhance the kinetic impact experience. It's a good question. So why not do that? Whenever we see a battle flash, why not add a subtle sound effect? I could see that it might get on the nerves of people after a while, or it could be disruptive when you live cast it. But then again, why not offer the option? So if you want to play with the engine yourself, you can have that option. Yeah, it would probably add some oomph to it, to the battle. Yeah, would be cool. Let me think about that. Good suggestion. Okay, this is a slow round, it seems. Mint DK, 700, 600 points up. Fibonacci, 1,300. Oh, come on, make your owners proud. That's not how you play. Mid-DK, let me see, how many times has that actually played? I can't tell. Okay, I don't have it in my statistics here. Right, this is very much work in progress, so whenever I cast one of these finales live, it's actually only the second time that I've done so, I keep noticing that I should have more statistics present at my fingertip, so I'm probably going to invest some programming time into collating information that I can present them as a live caster, background information. How many times has Mint-DK ever played in the finales? That sort of stuff, and giving you averages and all that. Because this is, after all, mimicking a sports league. We want to have this perpetual weekly series of events and immersion gameplay, meta gameplay. When is it appropriate to field a new pattern that I found? That kind of stuff should go in there. So it would make perfect sense to have statistics compiled and compare how does a particular glyph fare over the course of, I don't know, half a year, for example. Hopefully this series will last long enough so that we can see something like that. Right, clear and decisive victory for Fibonacci, 4 out of 4 rounds won. That's decent. Next up, quarterfinals. That's DX77 versus the Cardinal reigning champion, #1 glyph in our Hall of Fame. And let's see how these two fight it out. So far, they're avoiding all contact, it seems. Yeah, now we're seeing some action. It's very symmetrical. Both are equally receiving and punching. Yep. Oh, that's a close one. That's a close one. Okay, the Cardinal is up 1,300 points. Oh, that's way short. That's way short from what a pattern like that can achieve. And it's too short to actually be competitive against Dormant Warmind, I have to say this. So it pains me a bit because this is one of my patterns. I'm HASHZero, your host, and I also own some of the glyphs that are playing here. Okay, yeah, the Cardinal now. Oh my, this is a hard battle, a hard-won victory. Barely more than 1,400 points. 2,800 points after 2 rounds for the Cardinal. Oh my, Dormant Warmind can do that in 1 round. We've seen this twice already in this weekly finale. I'm starting to get a bit nervous here. And this time DX77 is clearly in the lead. Completely unbothered by the Cardinal. Very smooth curve. And the Cardinal is now overtaking DX77. Yeah, now they're tearing into each other. Now that's a proper fight there, right. And it looks like the Cardinal is coming out ahead again. 3rd out of 4 rounds. Close to 5,000 points. Again, decent but not stellar performance from the Cardinal. Yeah, containment failure would be devastating. I completely agree. That is one of the random events we programmed in there, and it's not going to be the last. It's the only one we have so far, the only random event we have so far. Containment failure basically means that the torus that this pattern lives on, that gets replaced by a Euclidean geometry, basically a box, and this is too little of a space to make the pattern stable over a long time. So when you have a containment failure, these patterns basically fizzle out very, very quickly, and they can no longer score. So if you're new to this cast, this is the weekly finale of our series of Conway duels or tournaments, where we play individual game of life patterns we find due to optimization routines, and we then field them in a competitive tournament, a series of tournaments actually, which is the weekly finale and a knockout style bracket tournament we're seeing here. So Kopfsache is now in the lead versus Positively Nabokovian. Both are relatively untested patterns. Nabokovian just decided this round for itself, 1,500 points up. Relatively unknown patterns. They were hashed over the past 2 weeks, I think. They haven't seen too much action yet. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, this is an auto battler. I can freely zoom in and out and roam around and all that, but I cannot influence the outcome of the battle. But if you're interested in this, you have to find these patterns that actually become eligible to be part of this battle. And how do you do that? Well, you look for Conway's Game of Life patterns that live on the 16 by 16 torus according to standard rule sets, B3, S to 3, if this tells you something. And then you look for patterns that live between 500 and 599 unique generations. That's the requirement you have. It's a relatively restrictive subset of Conway's Game of Life. And these individual patterns, once you find them, they become game pieces. So, yeah. There's that. 3,600 points versus 3,180. It's relatively close. Oh my, look at that. That is some beautiful battle light. They're flaring up now. Ah, they're fighting it out to the end. Oh my, but Nabucovian again victorious. Interestingly, Kopfsacher is now in the lead, despite only having won one round. That's interesting. So it's not the number of rounds in a match that a pattern wins, which determines the winner. It's the score. That's the important part to have to look out for. So, and it looks like Kopfsacher has actually turned this thing for it. Yep, it did. Okay, Kopfsacher advances to the semi-finals against positively Nabucovian. Interesting. So, first of the two semi-finals now, Dormant Warmind, clear favorite in this tournament, versus Fibonacci 296, both individual Game of Life patterns that were hashed in mind over the past weeks and months. Dormant Warmind, the clear favorite here because it has an exceedingly high life cell profile. This is the little graph you can see here, right below the pattern itself. It was specifically mined by Bobinu, its owner, to have a high average life cell count, and this is what makes it successful under the adversarial Conway algorithm. If you want to look into this, there's a GitHub repository where we have all the code. If you want to inspect that, I'm going to post the link actually. Yeah, here you go. And if you want to play around with this 3D engine you're seeing here, so the battle engine itself, I'm going to post another link so you can try it out yourself. Okay, second of 4 rounds, Dormant Warmind versus Fibonacci. Dormant Warmind already up 2,700 points. Yeah, it's giving me a fright a bit because this is an exceedingly strong pattern and it's probably going to defeat my personal champion in this series, which is the Cardinal. The Cardinal will play in the next match, the next semi-finale. And then maybe we'll see Dormant Warmind fight it out against the Cardinal, which is currently the #1 glyph. So I'm happy to own the #1 Hall of Fame glyph, but it's very much possible that it's going to be dethroned tonight. Let's see how that goes. Okay, third of 4 rounds. Dormant Warmind already leading by more than 2,000 points. Wow. So far we've seen surprisingly few containment failures, one of these random events that we've programmed into the game, where the patterns just fizzle out and cannot gain traction and score. Seen surprisingly little of that. So, okay, last round for the first semi-final, Dormant Warmind versus Fibonacci 296. I think this is pretty much hopeless. Fibonacci would have to score at least 2,300 points in this round, and it's just not in there. It just doesn't have that prowess. Dormant Warmind could easily score 2,500 points, but then again, it's an exceedingly successful pattern we've seen so far. Oh my, look at that. Dormant Warmind is really tearing into it. Completely tearing to shreds. Yeah, that's it. Another victory. Dormant Warmind is going to be in the finale. And the second semi-final now between the Cardinal versus Kopfsache. Surprise. This is going to be tight. I am on edge now. I should be a bit more neutral as the one who's casting this, but full disclosure, I'm HASH0, so the Cardinal is my favorite here now. It's one of my patterns. Kopfsache is a relatively untested pattern, was only recently discovered, and the Cardinal is like the venerated old god of the HASHWAR series, which was already found in January or February, I think, and the current #1 leader of the Hall of Fame. So Kopfsache doesn't let itself being shaken. Very, very close. The Cardinal barely scraping by a victory for the first round. A little bias is fine, thank you. Thank you for that. Just shouldn't overdo it. I have to say, we probably have to keep an eye on Kopfsache. It's a new pattern, it's relatively untested, haven't seen it in a lot of matches, but if it can hold itself against the Cardinal, well, that's not a bad pattern then. Yeah, barely 500 points up. Barely 500. It's really cool, yeah. It's a cool name too, Kopfsache. Sure. How would you translate that into English? Kopfsache, that's basically when your struggles in life, when they're more like in your mind than actually out there. That's what Germans mean when they say it's Kopfsache. It's all in your mind. Runtime is the only downside. You're right, Bobino. That's correct. Kopfsache has a runtime of only 549 steps, so it's one of those mid-range patterns when it comes to generation count. 549 unique generations. But then again, there is highly successful patterns out there that don't actually have a very high count. The Cardinal has, true, but that only gives you a little edge. I think it's far more important to have good average cell count. All right, that wraps up 4th out of 4 rounds for the second semi-finale before we advance to the finale. And it looks like, no, Kopfsache couldn't turn this around for itself. Okay, yeah. I am going to be very excited now. This is Bobinu versus me. This is a bit personal. I'm HASH0 here because this is the weekly finale, ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing now between Dormant Warmind, the up-and-coming upstart, new pattern, specifically bred to be the champion killer, versus the incumbent #1 of our leaderboard of the Hall of Fame for the Conway Glyphs, the Cardinal now. Yeah, that's a good one. Bobino, imagine one of the new sparse or dense patterns come into the tournament, smash the champs. That would be absolutely fantastic. There is an ongoing parallel challenge that we've just started yesterday, where people are mining very sparse and very dense patterns, not like the ones we're seeing here. That would be absolutely hilarious if one of these qualified for the finale and smashed the champions. All right, round #1. Oh my goodness, look at that. The Cardinal is already behind by 700 points versus Dormant Warmind. But then again, I have to say, Dormant Warmind can easily score 2,500 and more points per match. But it didn't manage to do that because the Cardinal is holding its own. It's, after all, a very strong pattern. Looks like it's going to lose this, but it's a very strong pattern after all. And whoever goes up against it, even a potent pattern like Dormant Warmind, is going to lose a few points here. Yeah, the Cardinal's now closing up again, but can it close the gap entirely? Doesn't look like it. Dormant Warmind. Wow, now up by 1,500 points after 2 rounds. 2 more rounds to go before we have a new weekly winner. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be the Cardinal winning its 3rd gold medal, or is it going to be Dormant Warmind winning its 1st gold medal? Bobinu's 3rd. That would be nice for him as a creator. I don't know. Okay, they've stabilized now, but the Cardinal is Not closing in on Dormant Warmind. Nope, nope. Not really. Doesn't even come close. Dormant Warmind now up 6,900 points versus 4,400 for the Cardinal. Fingers crossed. Yes, indeed. Now the final round. The Cardinal would need 2,500 points to equal Dormant Warmind's score, let alone win against this. They're tearing into each other. One of them should suffer engine containment failure now, actually. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. No. Yeah, second half of the match might be in favor of the Cardinal when they clash. That's true. Cardinal is notoriously strong in the second half, but that's it. That's a Dormant Warmind utterly dominating the Cardinal, winning 4 out of 4 rounds with 9,400 points. And that is the new weekly winner. Congratulations to Bobinu, owner of Dormant Warmind. First gold medal for this pattern. And I dare say, very likely, not the last gold medal we're going to see from this pattern. Yes, good game, absolutely. Thank you for that. So let's move into my weekly workbench again. Let's update. I need to log in again. I'm sorry, I lost my login. No, that's not the weekly workbench exactly for series ID 31, 31st series we've seen so far. And let's trigger a rescore because I want to see. I would like to see the current standing of our score. So we're now recalculating. Recalculation complete. Let's update it. All right, again, as we said, Dormant Warmind just won its first gold medal here, so it has now advanced to the number 4 spot in our Hall of Fame. The Cardinal is still unassailed, still the number 1 spot, but for how much longer? Bobinu has some very strong patterns already in his roster. Apotheosis, 2-time gold medalist already. Dormant Warmind played 2 series so far, 1 gold and silver in both of them. So clearly the Cardinal is going to feel the pressure in the upcoming weeks. So looking at the score, Bobinu is now leader in the scoreboard, 33 points, and I'm coming in close second. So congratulations, Bobinu. Very well done. We're looking forward to many more exciting matches here. All right, that concludes our weekly series. We will draw the Series 32, weight class 500, tomorrow night. So we have 32 new glyphs competing again for the weekly series. Maybe the Cardinal, maybe Dormant Warmind, we don't know. This is going to be a randomized event. And the week after that, we're going to be on vacation. We're going to be on hiatus. And we will then see us again on Sunday 23rd when we draw Series 33, which will be the first time that we're actually playing weight class 600. So if you're interested in this and want to compete, sign up for livehashes/login, create a free account, and then start hash mining your patterns and yeah, maybe submit them for our weekly series. That's it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching us live, the weekly finale for the HASHWAR tournament, weight class 500. I'm HashZero, and signing off for tonight.